Josh Jacobs can bring with your offense and the way you guys like to use backs?
Well, I think the first thing that jumps off to me is just his play style. Like, he is a tough, hard-nosed, he can be a high-volume guy. Just studying him, I think there's more out there for him in regards to the passing game, using him out of the backfield. He's put some really good choice routes on tape, and that's something that we always try to get to. We've done it a little bit more down in the red area, but I love the person, just being around him, in that brief time when he came into Green Bay. It's not a shocker to me that why he wore a C on his jersey. You can just see the kind of person he is, and I'm really excited about just his style of play.
I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, when we talked to him, he said he was surprised because he didn't think you were going to be as cool as you are. Is that an insult?
I don't know what that means.
How do you take that?
I don't know. I don't know how to take that. How should I take that?
No, it's not my decision.
Yeah, that's. I don't know.
How big of a proponent was Rich for bringing him in based on his experience?
Yeah, I think Rich definitely spoke highly of him. I think any time that you have a coach on staff that's been on another team with a player like that, you're always interested in hearing what they have to say about him. And, he raved about the person, the player, the worker, and it'll be fun assuming he's going to be there April 15th. What's up, Paul?
How you doing, Matt?
How you doing?
Can you tell us about Chad Brinker and what do you think about him as he rises the ranks?
Yeah. Chad Brinker is he's a phenomenal person. We've had a lot of discussions, just talking players. We had a little morning workout crew that he used to be a part of, so I've spent a lot of time with him. I just think he's so well-rounded. He's got the scouting background, he played football. But he's also got the salary cap. So I think he's gonna do a great job in Tennessee. It was sad to see for me personally to see him leave.
He's talking about long-term stuff that sounds cutting edge. You envision him maybe coming up with stuff that pushes the envelope?
Yeah, I think he definitely could be an innovator, no doubt about it. He's a guy that seeks knowledge. I know he's working on his PhD, and just a phenomenal human, very smart guy, and I think he works really hard at it.
Back to your new running back. Josh is about as close to a workhorse back as there is anymore in this league. Is that in any way challenge or change that
I don't think so.
system?
No, I think you guys know how I feel philosophically. I think you have to have multiple backs in this league. Those guys take a beating. No, it's always a luxury when you have a guy that can take those number of carries and be a high volume guy, but I don't see it really changing much in terms of how we want to use our backs. I always think it's a marathon. The NFL season's a marathon, and you need your best players healthy, especially at the end of the season. And then when, kind of like a season to go, when your back's against the rope, so to speak, then you kind of unleash it, and you got to do whatever you got to do to win. So, but I think that's a luxury for us, that he is capable of carrying the ball that many times.
Your other premium new guy, Xavier, on the defensive side, you look at the safety market in the league, it's been devalued across the league. You guys went out
Not anymore.
And got him, right? I mean, that was aggressive. What is that, in terms of on-field impact and value, what is it having a safety like that do for you?
Well, I think, you rely on the safety for so many things. I mean, first of all, just the communication in the back end is absolutely critical, making sure that we get all 11 on the same page, and that's usually the last line of defense. So if you get past the safety, there's nobody left. And I love just his ability to make plays on the ball. I think you saw it. You've seen it over the course of his career, but in particular, two plays that stick out to me were in that Philly game, where he makes an unbelievable interception on the sidelines, and then the very next play they try to run a screen, and he dissects the screen and jumps in front. And picks off the ball, like back-to-back plays, 2 interceptions. So I think you can't. Anytime you have a guy that can take the ball away, I mean that just is. That's what you're looking for in all your players, especially on the defense side of the ball.
How tough was it losing Aaron Jones, and which young guys did you see last year who can maybe step into that leadership?
Yeah, that's really tough. I think not only the football player, but the man, right? We've spoken so many times just how much he brought to our team that probably will never show up on the stat sheet in terms of just being a veteran presence in the locker room that, he's always been team first. He walks the walk. He does everything. He's just such a pro. So I think that's always tough to replace, and naturally it's gonna happen. Somebody's gonna have to step up. I've talked to Jordan about this a little bit. He's got a year under his belt as the starter. Now I expect more out of him, and I think we all do. And I think he expects it out of himself, which is great. So guys like him are going to have to shoulder some of that leadership, moving forward.
Matt, in that same vein, what did it mean to retain AJ and being able to have him now in that room with Josh as you make that transition?
Yeah, I think that's critical. AJ's another guy I think that can be a high volume guy. Unfortunately, this last year, he battled through a lot of stuff, throughout the course of the season. But, I thought from just the things that he was able to bring from a pass protection standpoint this year, this was his best year in pass pro. So, we know what we're getting with A.J. Dillon. I think there's some versatility that we can start to use with him moving forward, and trying to be more of a movable piece, not just a tailback.
Do you think Rasheed can be a future left tackle for you guys based on what he showed you last year?
Well, he was our left tackle.
Well, I know, but I'm saying he was more so because he had to be because Dave got injured. Can Rasheed be the guy from the jump for? I
think so. I think Shido. I thought he had a really good year. I think there's a lot of room for improvement, and just in terms of from a consistency standpoint, playing 70 plays at a high level, we've seen some great flashes from him. He certainly is athletic enough to do it. So it's going to be a big offseason for him, but he's a guy that we're certainly confident in.
You have such a timing offense in the passing game, but really emphasizing the quarterback getting rid of the ball fast, right? And that's important. How do you evaluate the offensive line with the system that you run, where you're getting the ball out quick anyway?
Yeah, I think it's all concept dependent. I mean, we're always going to coach the timing element of the passing game, but are you running quick game? Are you running screens? Are you running 7-step drops that are going to take a little bit longer? What we've transitioned to a little bit is on some of those deeper developing plays is making sure that we use tight ends or receivers in some instances to help chip edges, and but it's kind of all dependent upon who you're going against, what style of defense you're playing, who do they have rushing the passer. So it's game by game.
When you kind of went back and evaluated the season, especially how it ended there in San Francisco, was there a sense that maybe you guys on defense were maybe a safety away from making that run for just the way that it ended? Was that kind of maybe the missing piece?
I mean, I think there's a lot of things that you look back, and there's a lot of things that we're certainly proud of in terms of just sticking together as a football team, being able to rally and win some obviously some critical games late in the season to allow us to advance. The game at Dallas was just a great team win, and I thought for a half there in San Francisco, I thought we were playing pretty solid, and we just made too many critical mistakes. In the second half, really in every phase. So I don't want to just pinpoint one position. It's going to be that's going to change it for us. I think it's going to be an interesting year in terms of the expectations are going to be a little bit different, I would say, for our football team, at least from the outside world, and we got to do our best to just kind of ignore all that and get to work, and because nothing's guaranteed in this game. There's going to be new obstacles and new hurdles to move over, and but I am excited about the group that we have coming back, and just can't wait to get these guys back in April 15th.
Matt, what did Keisean show you last year? Not only just with the kickoff return stuff, but being able to manage, as much as he played in the slot.
Yeah, I know. Just in our conversations with Hafley, with Derek Ansley, RD, obviously, they were really excited about what they saw on tape from his ability to play the nickel position, his ability to, he's a big guy, big guy for the position. He's 200 pounds or whatever, and his willingness to, fit in the run fits, whether it's an A gap, a B gap, stick his nose in there, and then also his ability to play man coverage. So certainly there's going to be some elements to our scheme that are going to be different, and he's going to have to learn the new scheme. He's played in this style of system before with the Raiders when Gus Bradley was there, so he's familiar with some of the things that are going to be asked about him. But that was a big get for us to get him back, in my opinion.
Because obviously and this is not trying to trash about your last quarterback, just detached from everything during the offseason. What is Jordan like? What's his process like after the season ended? Is he like itching to get back in the building, or what are your conversations with him?
Yeah, we've been in contact, just checking in, just seeing how he's doing with a lot of our players, but in particular him. And he went out west to California. I know he's working out there. But yeah, I think he is excited to get back to work, and he's putting in that work right now as we speak.
How important is year two? Like, one thing that we haven't seen Jordan really do at this point is do it again, right? Because he's done everything else, he hasn't had the chance. Like, how different is year two for a young guy who's kind of gone through that space?
I think we just kind of hit on it. It's no different than what it's going to be with our football team. I think the expectations are going to be different, and it's how does he manage those. But I do think there's the one thing I love about, or there's a lot of things I love about him, but like one of the things that has impressed me most about Jordan is just his ability to learn from every situation, both good and bad. And so I expect him to, there were some tough lessons in that last game that I expect him to learn from, and I know he'll do everything in his power to come back and be even better than he was last season.
You had so many rookies on that side of the ball last year. I don't know if it felt like you were kind of having to piece things together on the fly, but it would be kind of understandable considering how young everyone was, right? Are you able to just expound on that now and build this offseason in a way that you just couldn't a year ago?
Yeah, we were talking about this as an offensive staff the other day with Adam Stenovich. Before the draft last year, we didn't even know who was going to be on our team. So it's hard to plan and really put together an offense when you have no idea, when you don't know who your tight ends are necessarily going to be. You didn't really know who your other wideouts were going to be. So there were some holes, and to have a lot less and have everything kind of in place, it allows you to plan a little bit better, I think, and be very intentional with your off season. And so I do think we'll have a better plan in place when the guys come back in terms of where we want to take our offense.
So you breathing a little easier now than last
Yeah,
March,
right now.
maybe?
But right now,
Yeah.
but we all know how that changes as soon as training camp kicks off. And no, I'm excited about the off season and trying to try some new things out. And we certainly have a better idea of what everybody is really good at right now. It's how can we, perceive weaknesses, how can we make them strengths?
Matt, looking specifically at Wicks, at what point did you think you guys might really have something there with what he could do downfield, some of the separation, just the big plays that he was able to create?
Yeah, I think the one play that comes to mind is the touchdown pass he had versus Atlanta. It just kind of, you'd see flashes in practice. Certainly his short area quickness is really impressive. His ability to get off the line of scrimmage, to separate, but to see him do it in a game on we call it a Dover route, and avoid the tackles, and I don't know how many yards that was. I can't remember. It was 30 some odd,
Yeah, right.
40 yards, or what is it?
32.
32. But that was a big time play, and that was super encouraging, and I think gave all of us more confidence to give him more opportunities, to make plays for us.
Hey man, how
When
long?
free agency is fast and it's crazy, how did it go down with Josh Jacobs as far as you guys learning about it?
That's a great question. It kind of caught me off guard too, to be honest with you. I mean, certainly I knew that there was
Pretty new as a target, though.
and I mean there was some other things in play, obviously with Aaron Jones, and I didn't quite know how everything was going to go, and it just happened really fast on that Monday. They came down, and when they were allowed to start to talk to those guys, and it happened really fast. So I don't know all the details of that. I'm not involved in those types of conversations. So, but yeah, we were super excited.
I mean, you've had productive running backs. What is it about him that made him such a priority?
I just think when you look at his body of work, his play style, his running style, I think he'll excel in whether we run outside zone, the gap schemes he's been super productive with. And I think, like I was telling these guys earlier, I think there's some things that we can do with him in the pass game as well, kind of getting him out of the backfield. I think there's to him in that regard.
Hey man, how long will it take an athlete to catch up with the NFL or what's going on around the league with offenses are doing?
I think he's a football guy. He's been putting in a lot of late nights already. I think anytime you take a new job and your family's not there, it's like, all right, well, what else am I going to do? So he just stays in the office till all hours of the night, and he's studying up. I mean, they've watched a ton of tape, so I think it'll be a pretty quick transition, personally.
Did you guys discover anything with Christian on kind of the medical checks that he's undergone this offseason, just on how to stay on the field?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, I mean, we did a full scan of him. We sent him down to Madison. They got some special lab there or whatever that all the medical guys can give you the better diagnosis on him. But yeah, we looked at a lot of different things in terms of just his body comp, and maybe areas that were stronger than others to try to help get us in front of that. Him and Stokes. We sent both those guys down there.
Is that what with Christian? Is that what it comes down to? Is just well balanced strength?
I mean, I just think we're trying to look at everything we can do to mitigate those risks. And I know he's working his tail off right now down in Florida, trying to make sure that he comes in the best shape possible. Certainly, we looked at elements of the things that we can control because, I mean, soft tissue injuries happen in our sport. It's like, how can we mitigate those? And that's what we've looked at, from him personally to what we're asking of our players from a load perspective, whether it's in training or in practice.
Ryan was saying that he wants to get back to drafting multiple quarterbacks. Are you really going to make Tom Clements earn his salary this year?
Sure.
In all seriousness, what did you see from Sean last year? And do you think, the fifth-round pick can really be the solid backup?
I do. I was super excited about Sean. I just saw the growth in practice, the way he was able to compete against our defense, and we always try to, when you're on the scout team, we always try to take whatever play they're running and put it in our terms so we can help coach him a little bit better with it. And I just saw so much growth throughout the course of the season. He kept continuing to get better and better and better, and would make some throws in practice where you just kind of, you didn't know he was always capable of that. So, there's a reason why he started so many games at Penn State, and he's played at a high level. So I thought there were some flashes in the preseason when he got his opportunities to go in there, where he showed some resiliency. He throws a pick six for Cincinnati and then comes back and leads us on a touchdown drive. I think those are things that you can't necessarily coach, just that resiliency. He's a competitive dude, and yeah, I expect him to take a jump, be in year 2 in our system.
Matt, are there checkpoints you're looking for? Because you obviously had Jordan behind Aaron for multiple years. That sort of lets you know the player that you're trying to develop, that you're seeing the things that you want because they can't get on the field very much with behind you.
Yeah, I mean, I think, we evaluate everything. So there's never a wasted rep, whether you're on the scout team or you're running with the ones. So, we're just constantly evaluating. And to me, it's you just want to see that consistency with the decision making, the timing, the accuracy of which a guy goes out there and plays a position.
Mac, could you walk me through how Camp Dillon ended up in Green Bay, and why do you think that Miami is the landing spot for him?
Camp. There was a couple teams after him, and Hafley, thank God, he had to do his best recruiting to get him to come to Green Bay, and certainly I did as well. But I think that, we haven't had players in yet, but I love the energy that he brings. I expect to see that on the field. And then in regards to Joe Barry, I think you guys know how I feel, or these guys probably know how I feel about Joe. I think he's a tremendous person, phenomenal football coach. I was talking to Mike McDaniel about him the other day, or yesterday, as a matter of fact, saying, you got one of my favorites, and I think he's a guy that I think he'll excel in that role out of Miami.
And how important was it to get McKinney to do what you guys want to do with Jeff Stevens?
Well, I mean, certainly before we got him, there was definitely some holes at the safety position in regards to a guy that's, proven himself. We got some young guys that we're excited about, but just having a veteran presence that's been able to play at a really high level. I think he's one of the better safeties in the league, obviously, by how much he got paid. And, but his ability to take the ball away, I can't emphasize that enough.
Talk about building on offense. When you got to the end of the season, when you look back, what were the things that you felt like, okay, we just couldn't quite get to this part of it that we can maybe explore now?
I don't think there's anything. There's certainly some things that we can do better in regards to both the run game and in the pass game. And there's some schemes after you always go through it and you try to be as aware as possible. But there's so much volume of things. There's certainly some things that we're going to stop doing that weren't very effective. So that's always, to me, the constant evolution of your offense. Things change each year. The offseason provides all of us a great opportunity to study other teams and see what they did effectively. And there was some good stuff that we studied, and we'll try to implement some of that stuff into our offense.
So I know these things are hard to quantify, but how much say or influence, or I guess say it the best word, do you and your staff have in the draft?
I think, I would say we have a lot of say. There's a lot of conversations. The personnel department, the way it typically works, the personnel department provides our coaches with a list of guys that they want reports on. And no different than a scout. We watch all the tape, we write the reports and the evaluations on those players. Then the guys that our position coaches really like, kick their guys to the coordinators evaluate, I evaluate, and then we come together with our scouting department and we kind of talk about all the guys, and then what you're really trying to do is the outliers where maybe the personnel department really likes a guy and our coaching staff doesn't. That's where you want to try to get on the same page And I think those meetings provide that opportunity to, here's what I liked about them or didn't like or whatever, and how would they fit within our scheme, the vision that we have for them as a staff.
Hey Matt, there's always this age-old question: how's the best way to develop a young quarterback or rookie quarterback? You guys have obviously, or as an organization, have had success with that, letting the guy watch every time. Do you think that is ultimately the best way to develop a young guy, or is that just kind of the way it's worked out ultimately for you guys?
I think there's a lot of different ways. Certainly, there's no substitute for the reps. I think, a lot of guys coming into this league is different than college football. And there's a learning curve to the league, and certainly I think in regards to not only knowing your own scheme, but the protections that go along with it, I think that's a big part of it, where maybe guys aren't as well versed in the college game. And I think it always starts with that when you're talking about the pass game with those quarterbacks, and there's such a big learning curve that I do believe that some guys, if they're thrown in there too early, they get scars and they start to lose their confidence, and it's hard when a guy loses his confidence to kind of recover from that. That's why it's impressive to me, just thinking about a guy that I worked with back in LA that was Jared Goff, who started 7 games as a rookie, didn't have a lot of success, and to see his ability to bounce back from that, that's always kind of stuck in my mind. That was pretty impressive for him to have that mental toughness to overcome that. But I do think that there's been a lot of examples of guys maybe not coming in right away and being able to learn and watch, and then they go out there and have success. I mean, it happened with Aaron. I expect Jordan, and then Pat Mahomes didn't come in and start as a rookie either. So, and there's also great examples of guys like C.J. Stroud that can come in and light the league on fire. So I think there's a lot of layers to how you develop your quarterbacks, but ultimately it's just you want them to be able to have a great knowledge base and maintain their confidence through the ups and the downs.
Is it one thing to say have patience I watch when you have an Aaron Rodgers or an MVP like that versus a lot of teams just don't have the guy in the fan base, others are desperate to get that player.
Yeah, I think especially with rookie quarterbacks, these guys that are drafted really high, sometimes they just don't have the support around them either, right? And that plays into it as well. There's a reason usually that teams are picking at the top of the draft. So, you want to try to support them with as many pieces as possible to just try to ensure that they're going to be successful. And I think that's when you see the confidence grow, and that's when you're going to get the most out of it.
A couple more guys. I know you're high on Keisean in the slot, but he's pretty good returning kicks for you as well. I'm curious, I don't know if this is the way you're answering this, but I'm curious, do you want the kickoff to return to remain in the game, and what's the best way to do that to keep the key?
Yeah, I definitely want. I think the kickoff. I don't know what football would be without it. So you definitely want it to be a part of the game. And certainly, when you have a returner that's as dynamic as Keisean, the more opportunities he can get to return, I think it could set us up. Now it's just not only on Keisean. You got to have the guys in front of him making the blocks and setting it up in that regard. But his value, whether it's at nickel or as a returner, I think is, really high.
As you go through the pre-draft process, you seen any effects from that as far as dealing with players or experience level?
Do I see any effects? I think it's going to affect eventually. I think right now everything's relatively new, so but I think it eventually could affect our league in some regard, because you're talking about guys that may have made more money in college than they do in the NFL, which is crazy to fathom. So,
Coach, is there a common denominator with you, Dwayne, Zach? I hate to call it a trend, but is there a common? Is it more the way? Is it more structure the scheme, that's maybe the common denominator how you guys run the team?
Yeah, I think there's probably. I mean, we've all been around each other. I think we all learn from each other. So I would say that there's a lot of our just overall philosophy of how you organize things, how you structure things, how
What do
you
you think it is in a nutshell?
that there's way too many layers to that. To be honest with you, I think we could all agree that it starts by you better be true to yourself as a leader and try not to be somebody else. But I think just philosophically, in terms of the standards that you set and the values that you have within your building, I would say that there's probably a lot of similarities there.
Last one, guys.
Matt, really quickly, just about your side of the coaching staff and the offense. You know, bringing I think Ryan going into the receiver coach role, some of the other pieces you have there. How did you feel about how that fell in place and kind of what you guys have now on that side of things?
Yeah, I feel really good about that. I just think that, first of all, I think Jason Vrabel, he's ready to be a coordinator. So I'm trying to brace for what I think is to come. Just like I think Steno should start to get some opportunities at the head coaching position. So just trying to make sure that we're supported in all those areas and that we have people kind of in the bullpen ready to go. I think Vrabel's a phenomenal teacher. He's still going to be heavily involved in that room, but I wanted him to teach Mahaffey that position. I think Ryan's got a well-rounded background, having the O-line component now. He played tight end. He's coached. He's been in the tight end room to get in the receiver room. He's been a coordinator at Northern Iowa, so I think he's got a bright future as well. And I wanted just multiple people in that room to be ready to roll. And we added Miles White, who's I think is a really good teacher, a really good coach. He did an internship with us a year ago, so just trying to brace for what I think could potentially happen in the future.